to Rose Garden Radio. Thanks for being here. I'm so excited. I was talking to a friend the other night, and I was saying, or we were both saying, I was saying how fast my new work day is. It's Thursday through Sunday, and I was amazed. Now that I changed my days, I was like, I can't believe it. It's just, I'm here on a Thursday. The next day's the weekend, and I can't believe it's Sunday already. It's amazing. And they shared with me that time, I was like, time is going so fast now. I can't believe it. It's this is idea is perfect, Thursday through Sunday. And they said, I work Monday through Friday, and time is going really fast for me too. So I think it might be for a lot of people. So if you feel that way, why don't you comment, or I'd love to hear about that. Do you think it's going faster? Is it just me? Let me know. You can PM or text. The number on Miss Lorana's is a cell, so it can get text. But I'd love to know, and maybe we'll talk about it. Oh, no. Oh my God. It's my phone. Sorry about that. Okay. Decline. What can I say? The technology. Anyways, thanks for being here. Let's get started. I'm excited to read more of our story. Hi, Amy, if you're out there. I can't wait for you to hear this, and everybody else. And I know there's a lot of you that have gotten the PDFs, and I hope if you've read ahead, you're reading along, and you're invited to come and read a chapter on the show. Uh, so let's go. Let's see, where were we? Page 37. So the next day was pretty much a repeat of the one before. Something that smelled delicious wafted upstairs around the crack of noon. I got up, dressed, and drifted downstairs in my leggings and long sleeve t shirt. Good day, sweet one, Aunt Lorana chirped, gliding around the kitchen, completely into her own moment. You are right in time again. I don't know why, but I had a strong craving for beignets with dark French roast coffee, my aunt wind chimed. My twist on the beignets, of course, sliced and covered with fresh fruit, then topped with a dollop of thick homemade whipped cream, a little maple syrup, and a sprinkle of cardamom. It's a breakfast fit for queens. I just put a plate of them on the table for you. I went into the dining room and poured a cup of steaming black coffee, smiling to myself about how easily I'd slipped closer into what I thought adulthood would be like. I just love the smell of freshly brewed coffee, Aunt Lorana said as she walked into the dining room with her plate of beignets. These beignets are wonderful, I kept repeating between mouthfuls. That's what I've been saying since the first time I had them when I was living outside of New Orleans in 1866. My head snapped up from my plate as I gave my aunt my full attention. She proceeded to lay her napkin in her lap and sip her coffee as if nothing she had said was out of the ordinary. What do you mean, Aunt Lorana? I asked, looking at her serene face. How is it possible that you could know that? I've heard of past lives, but I but it doesn't seem to me like anybody remembers the other lives they might have lived in any detail. That is very true, and a little false, my aunt replied, picking up her fork and selecting a chunk of loaded beignet. I will explain. Most people do not recall ever having lived another life. Those that can only have a vague sense that they've lived in another time, but nothing too detailed. Now, a small percentage of this group becomes able to remember their other lives in detail. When this happens, there's a shift in consciousness that we can discuss at another time, Aunt Lorana concluded mysteriously. I continued to stare at my aunt while I felt a little wrinkle start to form in the middle of my forehead. One part of me thought this made perfect sense, and the other half of me thought it sounded crazy. I thought the best thing to do was to keep eating my fabulous pile of beignets until I could start to pull myself together. So you remember being in New Orleans in the 1860s? I was able to ask after a few minutes. Yes, like it was today, my Aunt Wynne chimed with a twinkle in her eyes, looking completely happy and sane. I started to look around the dining room, noticing all of her plants. A large peace lily was near my chair with a white bloom rising amongst its leaves. I remember when I was around 12 or 13 and we were visiting you at the monastery, you told me when the peace lily in your living room was happy, it moved its leaves. I got excited and looked over, expecting to see it move. Then I saw the faces of my mom, Lance, and Julie. I know now that I stopped the magic that was about to happen for me. I think I did see the leaves start to move that day before I energetically pulled away, I told my aunt. Yes, I remember that moment. You were almost able to see the leaves move then, Aunt Lorana said lovingly. This is that same plant, Amy. It's much bigger now, and it's still very happy. The plant seemed to sense our conversation because I swear I saw its leaves move as if a very light fairy breeze had passed through them. I feel so good here in your home. I realize there is so much more for me to learn about life than I have been taught or have experienced, I told my aunt gratefully. Well, the beautiful mystery unfolds daily if we let it. Maybe that's what you're picking up on, Aunt Lorana said. I felt a tingle run through me. Time to get motivated. I'll put our dishes in the sink while you get ready. I want to spend a little time in the back garden before we go, so let's meet out there. The minute I stepped into the garden, I felt a change in the atmosphere. Lighter and more alive, yet simpler. Like a sommelier at Gervasi Vineyard, I sniffed the air, recalling. Definitely French, I laughed, as a little champagne bubbles seemed to float around, tickling my nostrils. But what about the vintage? It felt old yet new, brave yet timid. And then it dawned on me. It was Amy again. Her deep desire to know the outcome of Benjamin Franklin's memory brought us here. It's a good thing that I stepped out first. I looked down and noticed I was wearing a very fashionable gold evening gown, and I recognized it. It was the same gown I had worn to the ambassador's ball all those years ago. My ears felt the heavy dangle of the diamond and morganite earrings I had worn that evening, too. I had lost them over a century later and hoped they would return with me to Canton. It all started to make sense. Amy brought us to the exact day I met Benjamin Franklin, and by the looks of things, it must be approaching early afternoon. Amy should be thrilled after her initial shock wears off, if I can keep her calm, if I can calm her fears of not getting back to Columbus on time. I glanced up at the back of the house. It looked like the same timeless medieval fortress it always did, although I noticed my flower garden was different. Exotic wildflowers and poppies existed amongst the fuchsia echinacea that normally lived there, and a delightful new potager, a small kitchen garden, was growing near the back porch. Hundreds of cosmos, which I'd been trying to grow since I moved in, were growing wild between the bricks in the courtyard. My sweet alyssum flowers had turned into huge, hardy mounds that hung over the banks of the raised beds. Now I understood why they called them Knight's Flower. While on the road, a knight would seek a mound of sweet alyssum for his bed. These mounds are truly hardy and plush like a mattress. While he slept, the sweet fragrance of the flowers would heal them. Amy walked into the courtyard, and I empathically witnessed her feeling the air. Okay. We're back. I noticed, Amy walked into the courtyard, and I empathically witnessed her feeling the air, taking everything in. A smile rose inside my heart. My inner knowing had always been right about this triplet, and I was excited to see what would transpire for her. Aunt Lorana? This is Amy speaking. I felt like something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe the garden looked better than I remembered. Amy, what you're sensing is exactly right. The energy in the atmosphere around us is different, my aunt replied. I was startled for a moment because that was exactly what I was sensing. Honey, the desire you felt deep in your heart last night has been granted. We are in Paris, and it is the afternoon before the ambassador's ball. Your desire to know if Benjamin Franklin will remember me and now us is being fulfilled. This experience is a gift, and right after, we should be returned home to Canton, Aunt Lorana said calmly. You are truly magical, Amy. And you are. I feel sort of weird. My mind and physical body feel like they are separating from each other and going into different orbits. I know, it's a lot to comprehend. Take a deep breath and let it out slowly, Aunt Lorana said, putting her arm around me as I breathed. Fortunately, I remember exactly what I did before going to the ball the first time. We will do all the same things and see what happens. I continued to stare at my aunt as she shared the itinerary. First, we'll go for a ride into town and get our hair styled. I have an appointment on the books for 3 o'clock, and I know Colette will style yours too. Don't be alarmed about our hair, though. Ever since Marie Antoinette started to wear the poof hairstyles keep getting taller and more elaborate. They will be weaving flowers, feathers, and even stuffed birds and bird nests into our hair if we let them, she told me, tinkling her magical wind chimes. Afterwards, we'll have a light meal at Pierre's before heading off to the palace. By the way, I like your dress, mademoiselle, Aunt Lorana said with a twinkle in her eyes. I looked down and I saw I was wearing a formal ball gown. The shimmery light gold material cheered around me like the pile of whipped cream on my beignets. The fabric had a feel that I did not recognize. Oh, I miss these fabrics, my aunt said as if she were tuned into my thoughts again. Her emotional energy field felt like you were biting into a perfectly toasted marshmallow, warm and gooey. Your dress is made of a very finely spun raw silk. There are small fabric houses here that produce the most exquisite material. It really is a treat being back, Aunt Lorana said with a dreamy smile. I wish we had time to stop and pick up a few dozen bolts of fabric to take back with us, she said wistfully. I could barely believe any of this was happening, but something deep inside of me believed every bit of it. I followed my aunt out her back gate and around to the front of the house. A carriage and driver were waiting there. I immediately sensed that this was a much finer carriage than the one I had driven in Philadelphia, which again felt like an odd thought to have at this moment, right? Bonjour, Philippe. A salon de Marie, s'il vous plaît, Aunt Lorana said in fluent French. I didn't know you spoke French, Aunt Lorana, I whispered once we had been escorted into the carriage. Oui, but I speak very little. I tend to learn by immersion, so let's see if anything comes back to me, my aunt said, settling into the interior of her plush carriage. The French love it when you try, she wind-chimed. After a brisk ride, we stopped in front of a small shop. Colette, my aunt called as we entered the salon. A woman came out of the back room who I knew must be Colette. I immediately felt her heart-centered energy. She and my aunt hugged in a warm, loving embrace. It's been way too long, my sister Colette smiled, taking in my aunt's presents. Yes, Aunt Lorana radiated back, still holding on to Colette's hands. But here we are, feeling as if nothing has separated us. This is my niece, Ami. Aunt Lorana moved me in front of her to stand before Colette. Ami, this is my dear friend and sister Colette, coiffeur extraordinaire. We are in your gracious hands today. I noticed that she used the French pronunciation of my name. Ami. Ami brought us here, Aunt Lorana said matter-of-factly. Oui, please go on, Colette smiled, waiting for my story. My aunt gave me a look that let me know it was safe to tell Colette everything. I shared our first trip and my heartfelt desire to know if Benjamin would remember meeting my Aunt Lorana. And here we are, I finished, sort of smiling. Well, that is quite a story. I'm glad I have this opportunity to meet you, Ami, Colette said with a wind-chime laugh of her own. Please, have a seat while I prepare, she said, slipping behind a curtain into the back room. Aunt Lorana, when Colette smiles, she reminds me of Reese Witherspoon. Could they be related? It's possible. The destiny of who we meet and truly get to know in our life remains a mystery until it happens. Just then, a young woman around my age peeked her head around the curtain. Abigail, Aunt Lorana said, beckoning her over with a crick of her finger. Come and meet my niece, Ami. Even though we just met, I felt a deep, perhaps ancient connection to Abigail that let me know we would always be friends. And this is in parentheses. Now that I was some sort of time traveler, I was beginning to believe in ancient connections. I see you've met my niece, Colette said when she re-entered the room. Abigail, why don't you take Ami out to the old storage shed and explore? I would like to catch up with Lorana in private. I liked how Colette was honest about wanting private time with my aunt. I'm sure we can find something to get into, I said, smiling into Abigail's eyes, and a second later, we headed outside. As soon as the door closed, Colette lit up. Something has changed in your light body, Lorana. You are vibrating at such a high frequency I can barely stand to be near you. You're almost glowing. I could feel her gazing at me intently for the truth, and the truth is what she would get, or at least my version of it. Oh, Colette, my life feels like a ship adrift on the ocean, with no other ships in sight. I should not say adrift, more alone on a mission and waiting to be reunited with others on the same journey. What do you mean, Lorana? Colette asked, ready to listen. Not too long ago, while in Canton, Ohio, in the year 2020, I spiritually awakened to who I really was, Lorana, my eternal self. It is now 2023 where Ami and I live. I said, pausing and looking into Colette's blue eyes. Then everything we believe is true. We can reach a higher energetic state. I know it is possible by looking at you and feeling your energy. Oh, this is certainly a blessed day, Colette said, hugging me with tears in her luminous eyes. The future is not like the time we are living in, where our sisterhood was alive and connected. The sisterhood seems to have disappeared from the memory of anyone who was ever involved. It's like we never existed. I searched the internet, which is a system that has been developed to instantly access knowledge or images, for over a year for clues about us, and I found nothing. But we are a secret society, Lorana. Yes, however, it was common knowledge that the Sisterhood of the Golden Rose exists, like the Knights Templar or the Freemasons. All knowledge of the Sisterhood of the Golden Rose has vanished. Aunt Lorana! I heard my name just before the girls burst back into the room. Aunt Lorana, Abigail and I have figured out why you are here again, I said, all excited. You are visiting the Sisters of the Golden Rose and other periods to plant the seed of awareness into them so it will be easier for them to remember who they are in the future. The new energy you're exposing them to now will make it easier for them when they wake up and experience it again. Oh, I believe you two are right. I feel it in my heart. This has been the missing piece for me, Aunt Lorana said, giving us each a hug. I have believed that I was one of the first, if not the first, to wake up and remember, but now I see that I have another role to play. There are still mysteries to be solved, and with your help, who knows where this could all wind up, Aunt Lorana said, adding her wind chime laugh. Well, we will have to let any more mysteries wait if you two want your hair coiffed, Colette said, jumping into action. Ginny, Sonia, come quick, she said, clapping her hands to start the momentum they would need. Let's get Mademoiselles Lorana and Ami ready for the ball. Okay, that's where we'll leave off. We're on page 52. And don't forget, I hope I have this right. I probably don't. But for a free book, a free PDF, you can email me, LoranaRoseDay@gmail.com, and I would be happy to send you one. And that way you can read along with us or at home or read ahead of us. It's all good. So I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you have a lovely one. Until next time, bye-bye.